Today I'm going to be talking about the French Revolution. So let's start with how the revolution is going to begin. And when we start explaining this French Revolution, we usually talk about the old regime. The old regime was the feudal system that existed in France for centuries, and the society was divided into three estates. The first estate was the one that was serving the god. These are the clergy, or as you may see on this cartoon, this is the man standing on this side. The second estate were the nobles. They were serving basically the king, and they're represented by this armed noble over here. And the third estate are the rest. Out of this third estate, the great majority, more than 80%, were peasants, or the poorer dwellers of the cities. They were all included in the third estate. And as you may see on this cartoon, the man is carrying the world. Why? Because the third estate is the only one that is going to pay taxes. Because the first two estates, even though they had much more money, they were considered as privileged. You may not tax the church because it's like taking away the money from God. And you may not tax the nobles because it's on their protection that the country is going to rely. So who is going to be taxed? Well, obviously the third estate. And over here I have for you the picture of Louis XVI, the King of France, who is going to become a king quite young, and like he's going to be this new monarch. So when talking about any revolution or any big event, we have to talk about the causes. And when we talk about the long-term causes, the causes that existed during a long period of time, we talk, of course, about the Enlightenment philosophy that is we already seen in this class, and that is going to give like ideas that the people should fight for their rights. And also we have the examples of revolutions in other countries. In case of England, we have a period of English Civil War that is going to result in the Glorious Revolution and the creation of a limited monarchy, or a constitutional monarchy. And we already have the American Revolution had happened. We have the creation of the First Republic in America. And talking about the immediate causes of the French Revolution, well, I already explained you the injustices of the old regime, when we have three states, when two states are privileged and one is not. We have also the appearance of the new social class, bourgeoisie, that is, as you may see before, it doesn't have any privileges at all, and they're going to try to fight for their position in the society. France is experiencing an economic crisis. One big part of this crisis is that there were bad harvests. As a result, there is not enough food, so food becomes very expensive. And just imagine hungry, angry people on the streets of France. Of course, they were protesting. And we have the king who is going to face this difficult situation. He's going to call for the old traditional French parliament called the Estates General. So the Estates General, it was like a very archaic institution in which each one of the estates is going to have just one vote. So just imagine, we have two estates that are not paying taxes and one estate that is paying taxes. Each one of the estates has only one vote. So when the king asks if he may raise taxes or not, the two estates that do not pay taxes, obviously they do not care, and they say yes, you may raise the taxes as much as you want. And the third estate, the one that really pays taxes, that may be against, have only one vote. So as a result, 2 against 1, the other 2 are going to win. So as a result of this unjust situation, the third estate is going to create the National Assembly, forming like the first parliament in France. But let's go on into detail of these events. So when we talk about the French Revolution, we talk about 4 stages. First of all, we have the initial stage that is moderate, when we still do not have much fighting. Then we have the radical phase. This one is characterized by fighting both internal and external. Then we have a period of directory, when we have like a period of calm. And finally, we have the period of Napoleon Bonaparte, when he's going to take the power into his hands and eventually create a new monarchy. So let's start with the event that I was already trying to explain to you about like the National Assembly and how it all started. So once again, when Louis is going to summon the Estates General, third estate is unjustly represented, but even though it was underrepresented, still they wanted not them to cast their vote. And as a result, when they arrived the next day to the Estates General, they found that their room was closed and that they may not have a debate there. So what they did is to look for any place where they may gather, and they found that there was a tennis court nearby, so they are going to get together to this tennis court, and they're going to say that all these injustices should not continue, and that we should create a different type of government, where the parliament is going to make those types of decisions, and we are going to be part of this parliament. So this moment is known as the tennis court oath, or the plea for the creation of the Parliament of France, and basically this is like the first step towards the creation of the new government. So what happened next is that Louis got scared. He got scared that these events may lead to bigger problems and to bigger uprising. And he says, okay, you want to create the parliament, fine, we accept that you're going to create the parliament, but at the same time he's going to move his own guards, like his Swiss guards, to Paris to protect him and his family. And when the Parisians, they're going to see like the foreign army, the foreign personal army of Louis approaching Paris, they're going to get scared and they're going to storm the Bastille. So the storming of Bastille marks initiates the French Revolution. With the storming of Bastille, we have like the beginning of fighting. So there are rumors of that nobles are going to massacre peasants, and peasants eventually they're going to attack the nobles to prevent those from happening. So when we talk about the National Assembly, we need to mention that they create like the initial very important document, which is the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, that are going to be like, obviously the declaration that says that the men have rights, just like the Enlightenment philosophers had said so. But the men, they mean the men. This means that women do not have rights yet. They are not included in this declaration. The big problem that France had, I already mentioned in the beginning, was that they had a huge debt that Marie Antoinette, who was spending lots of money, and the king they have acquired. So something needed to be done to pay this debt. And the National Assembly decides to go against the church, and they're going to confiscate the lands of the church and sell them in order to pay the debt. The problem is that many of, especially peasants of France, they were heavily Catholic, and they are going to be very offended by this decision. So 3 years later, finally the parliament is going to draft a new constitution, a new main law in 1791, and it's going to create a limited monarchy, and the parliament is going to change its name from National to a Legislative Assembly. The problem was the situation, like an international situation around France. So just imagine, the king, Louis, he got married to the Princess of Austria, Marie Antoinette. So when all those events are starting to happen in France, the king of Austria, the father of the queen, he's going to feel like, what is happening there? I should do something to help my daughter. So she's saying that unless those radicals, or like the Parliament of France, is not going to secure the royal family, they are going to start the war against them. And in return, the Legislative Assembly is going to declare war on Austria and its allies Prussia and Great Britain. So this marks the beginning of the wars related to the French Revolution. So the situation is going to get worse. those who are going to control the Legislative Assembly in reality are going to be radical groups. The debates, they do not lead to some kind of like they have different opinions and they do not agree. And at the same time, well, the France is facing a very strong enemies represented by the other countries that are attacked them, represented by the war. So as a result, the radicals are going to take control and they're going to try to take away the power in their own hands. So they're going to say that we have to go further, and they're going to abolish the monarchy and declare that France is a republic. Since France is a republic, it has a new parliament called the National Convention that is going to be represented. What is going to happen to the king? Well, the king is no longer needed, so to say. So the radicals, they say that since we have a republic, we have to execute the king and the queen, and they're going to be executed with the guillotine. But the radical spirits are going to go farther and farther, and we have a period known as the Reign of Terror. I will speak about it in a moment in more details, when the Committee of Public Safety, led by Robespierre, is going to try to clean out all the old regime and create a new type of government in France. After all those radical events, after all those killings and executions, we have a period of Directory. Once again, the people are going to get tired, they're going to get scared, they wanted a creation a more stable government. So the parliament passed the Moderate Constitution of 1795 and establishes a 5-man Directory. This Directory suspends the riots in order to avoid all radicalism, and even though the Directory is corrupt, still they give to France a period of peace. Until we have the appearance of Napoleon Bonaparte, who is going to take advantage of the situation and overthrow the Directory. After this, he's going to set himself as a council, and then later he's going to proclaim himself as a council for life. And then 4 years later, it was not enough yet, so he's going to claim himself the Emperor of France. And while in power, he's going to make a series of very important religious and political reforms, and of course economic reforms too. So all his reforms are going to be known as Code Napoleon, Napoleonic Code, that are going to be all those changes in France. And since there is a war against France, Napoleon is going to take advantage for his military leadership. He was a very talented general, as you already know, and he almost defeated many of the European countries. But eventually, the new coalition is going to lead to the defeat and the abdication of Napoleon Bonaparte. So going to the Reign of Terror that I wanted to mention to you, it's a very interesting moment in French history. Over here I put you the picture of Louis, who just lost his head, and we have the radicals who are going to be controlling the streets. Who are the radicals? The radicals are the people who want a radical change. They want a complete change in society, and the most important organization of radicals was the Jacobin Club. It was led by Jean-Paul Marat, that you may see on this painting over here. Jean-Paul Marat was also killed during this period of time. I mean, the disagreements led to more and more fighting. And the most important character of the Reign of Terror was Maximilien Robespierre, that you have over here. He was the leader of what was called as the Committee of Public Safety. It was the organization to safeguard France and safeguard the situation in France at this moment of time. But in reality, the same committee is going to be a dictatorial, dictatorial organ that is going to try to establish the maximum control. So through this committee, Robespierre is trying to create a republic of virtue. He's trying to create a perfect government. And to do this, he understands he needs to get rid of all the traces of monarchy. For example, we have the new calendar that is going to get removed, the names um, of the emperors, like August, for example. Also, we have from the cards, from the deck of cards, they are going to remove the kings and the queens. Names, those who have their last name as Le Roi, which means the king in French, they're also going to change their last names to something more democratic and more appropriate. The truth is that there's going to be a lot of executions. Anyone who is going to be against Robespierre, he will eventually try to execute. And soon there's going to be the parliamentaries are going to understand that no one was safe from Robespierre, that sooner or later he may execute anyone, and they're going to make a plot, and they're going to execute him himself. So just like many of his, of those who oppose him, they lost their heads through the guillotine. He himself is also going to take of his own medicine at the end. So going back once again to this slide with the causes and effects. So let's take a look at the effects of the French Revolution. The immediate effects: we have the Declaration of Rights of Man. We have the execution of the king and the queen. We have the beginning of the wars in Europe. And of course, we have the period of reign of terror that is going to lead to the Erector and eventual rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. In long-term effects, we have the growth of nationalism. People all over Europe, they're going to change this idea, and they're going to feel loyalty to their nations. We have the conservative reaction represented by the Congress of Vienna. I will talk about it tomorrow. We have revolutions in many other countries, like, for example, the revolutions of 1930s, revolutions of 1830, of 1848, and many more. And of course, very importantly, we have the independence wars or independence movements in Latin America throughout, and of course in Mexico. So these are like one of the most important causes of, one of the most important effects of the French Revolution.